You know what's wild? Most people spend 40, 50 years of their lives chasing money, working for it every single day, stressing over it, arguing about it, losing sleep over it. And yet they never truly understand what money is or how it really works. Not the textbook definition you learned in school. Not the safe version banks or financial advisors give you. I'm talking about the real system, the invisible architecture that quietly decides whether your life feels trapped, anxious and dependent, or calm, free and in control. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Nobody teaches this on purpose. The people who gain the most from your ignorance are often the same ones who created the rules. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he wrote that those who control the mechanisms of power rarely reveal how they function. Power is strongest when it feels natural, inevitable, unquestionable. Money works the same way. Let me ask you a simple question. What is money? Most people repeat the lines they've been taught. It's a medium of exchange, a store of value. Not wrong, but incomplete. At its core, money is trust, a collective belief, a shared agreement that a piece of paper or a number on a screen has value. Fiat currencies have no intrinsic value. The dollar isn't backed by gold, it's backed by confidence. And that's the first illusion they teach you to ignore. When you get your paycheck, you're not receiving wealth. You're receiving a promise, a claim on wealth, a permission slip that says others will accept it from you later. The moment that trust falters, the value collapses. History proves this. In 1920s Weimar Germany, people pushed wheelbarrows of cash just to buy bread. More recently, Venezuela's currency imploded so fast that workers rushed to spend their wages the same day before prices doubled. The paper didn't change. The trust did. Machiavelli warned that systems built on perception must be managed carefully, because once belief crumbles, authority follows. Money is no different. If enough people decided tomorrow that the dollar meant nothing, no force on earth could make it valuable again. Governments can threaten, banks can close, markets can freeze, but belief cannot be commanded. It can only be cultivated and controlled. Centuries ago, a small group realized this: control trust, and you control behavior. If you want, I can also make an even punchier, more YouTube-ready version that's optimized for hooks and viewer retention. It would read like a script that grabs attention in the first 10 seconds. Oh, you want me to do that next? If you could decide who gets access to money, under what conditions, and at what cost, you could shape entire societies without ever drawing a sword. That's exactly what happened. Systems were built around money to make it feel complex, mystical, technical, something only experts could understand. Machiavelli would call this deliberate obscurity. Rulers make systems confusing not because they're inherently complicated, but because confusion protects power, and it worked. Most people never question what money actually is. They just chase it, and when they don't have enough, they don't question the system, they question themselves. They assume they're lazy, irresponsible, bad with money. That self-blame isn't accidental. It keeps the system safe. People who blame themselves don't challenge the rules. Think about it. If you fail at a game but believe the rules are fair, you try harder. If you realize the rules are rigged, you stop playing the same way. That's why the first rule of any power structure is to make its mechanics invisible. As Machiavelli observed, people tolerate injustice far longer than uncertainty, as long as they believe it's their own fault. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's strategy. Modern elites understand it just as clearly as historical ones did. Look at today's financial class: hedge fund managers, private equity firms, billionaire families. They don't talk about money the way you were taught. They talk about access, leverage, control, optionality. Warren Buffett famously said that if poor people understood how money really works, there would be riots by morning. That wasn't a joke, it was an observation. So before we talk about banks, debt, or investing, you need to see this clearly. Money is not neutral, it's not moral, it's a system of incentives built on trust and enforced by habit. And the moment you start seeing it this way, the game changes. You're no longer just reacting, you're observing. If this perspective already feels uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is awareness forming. And if this kind of thinking resonates with you, make sure you subscribe and join a growing community of men who are done playing life on default settings, who want to understand the systems shaping their decisions instead of being quietly shaped by them. Before we move on, I want to hear from you. Do you agree or disagree that money is primarily about trust and control, not hard work and merit? Comment agree or disagree below. Lock that thought in your mind, because what comes next is where the system stops being abstract and starts getting very real. If you want, I can also make a YouTube-ready punchy version of both scripts combined, optimized for retention, hooks, and engagement, keeping Machiavelli references and the money as trust theme, EBT creation, banking power, and the growth trap bar. Now that you understand money as trust, not substance, the next question is obvious. Who actually controls that trust in practice? Here's is where most people's understanding collapses, because this is the part that was never meant to be explained clearly. When you deposit money in a bank, most people assume the bank takes it, locks it in a vault, and keeps it safe until you need it. That's the story you were told. It's also completely false. Here's what actually happens. The bank lends most of it out. This system is called fractional reserve banking, and it sounds technical on purpose. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately. Complex language is a shield. It discourages questions. Here's the simple version. Banks are only required to keep a small fraction of deposits on hand. The rest can be loaned out. But it gets more unsettling. When a bank issues a loan, it doesn't transfer existing money from someone else's account. It creates new money digitally. Numbers appear on a screen. That loan becomes money the moment it's issued. This means the majority of money in the economy is not earned, mined, or printed. It is created as debt. Your salary, your savings account, the balance you see when you log into your bank app. Most of it exists because someone somewhere owes a bank money, plus interest. Pause and think about that. Money doesn't enter the system unless someone agrees to be in debt. And if that debt is paid off or defaults, the money disappears. This is why financial crises feel like money vanishes overnight. It does. It was never real wealth. It was a temporary promise, backed by ongoing repayment. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must understand not only how power is gained, but how it is sustained. Debt is the sustaining mechanism of modern power, because once a system is built on it, it requires continuous expansion. Interest guarantees it. Here's the math trap. Most people need... See, if a bank creates $1 million in loans at 5% interest, it has created $1 million. But it has also created an obligation for $1.05 million to be repaid. That extra $50,000 does not exist yet. The only way it can exist is if new loans are created, more debt or expansion. The system must grow or collapse. This is not a flaw, it's the core design. The system does not reward stability, it rewards leverage, speed, and scale. That's why periods of restraint are always followed by crises. Restraint starves a debt-based system. This is where people misunderstand elites. They assume the wealthy are just better savers or harder workers. That's comforting because it implies fairness, but the truth is darker and strategic. The architects of this system understood something Machiavelli spelled out plainly: people will tolerate enormous long-term harm if it gives them short-term comfort. Debt provides that comfort. The average American household now carries over $150,000 in total debt. Mortgages, student loans, credit cards, auto loans. And that number keeps rising. Meanwhile, national debt has crossed tens of trillions. These numbers feel abstract, which is exactly why they work. When scale becomes incomprehensible, accountability disappears. Notice what happens psychologically when people struggle under this weight. They don't say, "This system mathematically requires me to lose." They say, "I'm bad with money." That internalized guilt is one of the system's greatest protections. Machiavelli warned that the most effective control is when people police themselves. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You are not failing because you are irresponsible. You are struggling because you are participating in a structure that requires most participants to remain indebted. The winners are not those who avoid debt entirely. The winners are those who understand how it is created, where it flows, and who ultimately controls it. Simply opting out is harder than it sounds. You can't function in modern society without touching money. Rent, healthcare, transportation, food, all of it flows through this system. And the moment you step inside, you are incentivized to borrow, consume, and commit future labor in exchange for present relief. The system doesn't rely on force. It relies on psychology, on the fear of falling behind, on the promise that everyone else is doing it, so you should too. That's the next layer you need to see clearly. Because once the math traps you, the mind keeps you there. Before we go further, pause and reflect. Does this change how you see debt and banking, or does it feel exaggerated? Comment one word below, trap or tool. Don't overthink it. That single word will tell you a lot about how you currently relate to money. Psychological traps, status, consumption, and control. Once the system hooks you mathematically through debt, it locks you in psychologically. This is the part almost no one wants to discuss because it's uncomfortable. It forces you to admit that much of what you want wasn't chosen consciously. It was installed. Money today is no longer just about survival. It's about status, about signaling, about proving to yourself and to others that you're moving forward. Machiavelli understood status deeply. He warned that people will endure exploitation as long as their pride remains intact. Modern systems have perfected this insight. Think about the symbols of success you were taught to desire: the house in the right neighborhood, the car that communicates competence, the phone, the watch, the clothes that quietly say, "I'm doing well." You weren't born wanting these things with this intensity. You were trained. Advertising didn't just sell products, it sold identity. It taught you what winning looks like. Here's the genius of the system. It doesn't require you to earn status first. It lets you borrow it. Debt is time travel for consumption. You get the lifestyle now and pay for it with decades of future labor. A 30-year mortgage, a 5-year car loan, credit cards with minimum payments designed to stretch indefinitely. You feel rich today, but live constrained tomorrow. Machiavelli would call this a soft form of captivity. No chains, no guards, just obligation. Once you're carrying enough debt, your behavior becomes predictable. You can't take risks. You can't walk away. You can't offend the system that feeds you. You don't leave the job you hate because you can't miss the paycheck. You don't start the business you think about at night because failure would be catastrophic. Comfort is an effective prison. The system doesn't crush you, it cushions you. And while you're busy maintaining appearances, others are positioning themselves above you. Layer onto this the complexity of financial products, overdraft penalties, variable interest rates, credit card structures where minimum payments barely touch the principal. This isn't complexity born of necessity, it's strategy. Confusion keeps people compliant. When people fail inside this maze, they don't revolt, they internalize the blame. They say they lack discipline. They assume everyone else understands something they don't, that isolation is critical. Machiavelli noted that people rarely unite against a system they believe is fair, even when it quietly destroys them. Now compare this with how those who truly understand money behave. Not influencers, not flashy personalities, real operators, the kind who quietly control assets, companies, and capital flows. They don't use debt to consume, they use it to acquire. When the average person borrows money, their liabilities increase while income stays the same. When a wealthy individual borrows, their liabilities increase, but their assets increase faster. They buy property that cash flows, businesses that scale, equity that compounds. Take someone like Sam Zell, the legendary real estate investor. He openly spoke about using debt aggressively, but only when attached to assets that produced income. He didn't fear leverage, he understood it. Or look at modern private equity firms. They borrow massive sums not to live better, but to buy businesses that generate enough cash to service the debt and still grow. The tool is the same. The intention is different. When you use debt emotionally, it enslaves you. When they use it strategically, it multiplies them. Here's the part that stings. The interest they pay is often tax deductible. The system rewards debt when it's used to build productive assets. Meanwhile, your interest on consumer debt is paid with after-tax dollars. Same system, completely different outcomes. This is where compound interest becomes truly powerful, not working against them, but for them. Assets compounding quietly over decades. This is how generational wealth is built, not through luck, but through positioning. By the time many wealthy individuals are 30, their assets are already producing income. Meanwhile, the average person is just beginning to stabilize, usually in their 40 seconds or 50 seconds, right when time becomes scarce. The math was never neutral. It was designed to reward early access and punish delayed understanding. Before we move forward, pause and reflect. Think honestly about one financial decision you made primarily to signal success rather than increase freedom. A car, an apartment, a purchase. Comment 1 or 2 words that describe that decision, not for judgment, for clarity. Awareness is where leverage begins. How the wealthy play, the game, and the real choice. Once you see the system clearly, the final shift isn't technical, it's philosophical. This is where Machiavelli becomes most relevant. He never promised fairness. He promised clarity. He taught that freedom doesn't come from wishing the game were just. It comes from understanding how it is actually played. The wealthy do not escape the system. They position themselves inside it. They accept the rules and align their behavior accordingly. They understand that money is leverage, not morality. Debt is neither good nor evil. It's only dangerous when used without strategy. Look at how dynastic wealth is built. Families like the Rockefellers understood this more than a century ago. John D. Rockefeller didn't just accumulate money. He accumulated control over cash flows, infrastructure, and distribution. The wealth persisted because assets generated income long after the original labor ended. That's the difference between income and ownership. Modern elites follow the same logic. Real estate investors borrow to acquire properties, where tenants service the debt. Business owners reinvest profits instead of inflating lifestyles. Investors use legal tax structures to defer or reduce liability. This isn't genius, it's alignment. They play the game as it is, not as it was marketed. Machiavelli wrote that a wise man does not complain about the storm. He learns how to sail. Most people spend their lives angry at the system or pretending it doesn't exist. Both lead to the same outcome, stagnation. The shift happens when you stop asking, "Is this fair?" and start asking, "How does this actually work?" Compound interest is the clearest example. On consumer debt, it quietly destroys people. On productive assets, it quietly builds empires. $10,000 invested at 10% becomes over $400,000 in 4 decades. The math is simple. Access is not. The system ensures most people are too busy servicing debt to ever accumulate starting capital. This is why generational wealth matters. It's not just money, it's time. Early exposure and absence of financial panic allow compounding to work. Start late, and every mistake costs more. Here's the critical point. Understanding this does not magically free you from the system. Machiavelli was realistic about human constraints. What it does is far more important. It removes self-blame. And when self-blame disappears, agency appears. You stop needing to signal success you don't have. You stop consuming to soothe insecurity. You stop trading future freedom for short-term validation. You may never become a billionaire, most people won't, but you can build a life where money is a servant, not a master. You can choose fewer obligations, more optionality, less noise. You can delay gratification strategically instead of emotionally. That alone puts you ahead of most people, because the system relies on impatience to function. This is the real rebellion, not anger, not quitting the game, not pretending money doesn't matter. The rebellion is precision, understanding the machinery so well that you stop reacting emotionally and start positioning deliberately while everyone else runs in circles, exhausted and confused. The system doesn't punish ignorance immediately. It rewards it at first: comfort, approval, status. Then it slowly invoices you with interest, obligations, and lost time. The people who win aren't more virtuous, they're more aware. They understand one hidden law: Machiavelli would never sugarcoat it. Whoever controls the rules doesn't need to control you directly. You'll discipline yourself for them. Once you see that, you stop chasing appearances, you stop confusing consumption with progress, you stop trading decades of freedom for a few moments of validation. You don't need to overthrow the system, you just need to stop being useful to it in the way it expects. If this way of thinking resonates, subscribe and join a growing community of men done living on financial autopilot. Men who want clarity, leverage, and long-term control instead of short-term comfort. This channel isn't about motivation. It's about understanding power while you still have time to act. Now lock this in. Comment the hidden law you're taking away from this video, in your own words. Not a quote, not something inspirational. The actual rule you now see that most people miss. Because once you name the law, you stop breaking it unknowingly, and that alone puts you ahead of the game.